Hello everyone and welcome to the FinTech Times. Today we're here at PAY360. I'm Tyler and I'm joined here by David. How are you, David?
I'm very well, thank you. It's very nice to meet you. Very nice to be here.
Well, if you wouldn't mind just telling us a bit about yourself and where you've come from.
Okay, so my name's David Jones and I look after fintechs for Mastercard for the UK and Ireland. So that encompasses all of our relationship with the very largest kind of neo-challenger banks, Monzo, Starling, Revolut, etc., all the way through the enablers and bin sponsors and some processors, through to the new programs that we're bringing on kind of every day, actually. So, yeah.
I see Mastercard are doing so much at the moment. It's a very exciting time for...
Very much is, yeah.
Yeah. Well, you've just come off a fireside chat with our Mark Walker, is that right?
That's right, yeah.
How did that go? Did you enjoy that?
It was good. I was running a bit late. So I got on the stage feeling a little like, but then it was all right in the end, actually. I think it went quite well.
Lots of pavements to talk about, I bet. Yeah. Brilliant. Well, today, of course, this summit is looking at everything to do with PayTech and what the modern transaction looks like. I think, in light of the pandemic, this is a very poignant event and has really brought to light the innovations of the past 2-3 years. So when we talk about the pandemic, we talk about the new normal. What for you is the new normal in PayTech?
Okay, I'm not sure. New normal is an especially useful phrase, actually. I think things just changed. So massive acceleration, everyone knows, massive acceleration in contactless, massive acceleration in digital wallets, massive acceleration in card not present transactions as opposed to kind of high street transactions. And none of that's going to go backwards, right? That's here to stay, that will continue. I think the other big change is that we, as consumers, fundamentally kind of shifted our view of the world a little bit. I mean, it was a pretty significant event and people started to care about different things. People started to think about different things. It was a brand new context and it changed people's perspectives. So what we're seeing now is a real shift towards purpose-driven propositions that have kind of values at heart, right? So that are tailored to quite specific and sometimes quite niche consumer segments, the things they care about, the things that matter to them. And I think we're going to see an acceleration of that. Fewer kind of mass propositions that we've seen before, more specific propositions aimed at specific customer needs.
Well, it's very interesting that you talk about customer needs, and I think, if anything, the last 2 years have really highlighted what the customer wants.
Yep.
What's the biggest change in customer demands that you've seen from PayTech?
I mean, some of the fundamental things that consumers demand from, financial services generally, but payments specifically, some of those things didn't change fundamentally, they just got more. So speed, convenience, safety and security, simplicity, they all existed, but they matter more because, we're not putting our PIN in that often anymore and we're transacting online a lot more than we used to. So those things become more important. We've seen a big change, so strong customer authentication just last week finally went completely live in terms of the regulation. That's a shift towards safety and security as well. The other thing though is I think consumers have had maybe a bit more time to think about the things that matter in terms of an experience. So that will continue and continue, right? So there's been a huge amount of innovation in terms of the way we pay, the way we affect a payment at this moment in time, which will continue. And in the future, I just came from a talk on digital currencies, which was super interesting. I'm miles away from an expert on that, but very interesting. We've also heard quite a lot about open banking today, which has a lot of road to run, right, before it becomes a scale solution. But I think we'll see that. So no, I think it's exciting times. I think, and from Mastercard's point of view, it's great, right? We love it. We love competition. We love the way the market changes. We like to be part of that. We love the innovation. One of the reasons we're so obsessed with working with fintechs is because they help us drive innovation and help us kind of drive the energy and pace that we want to see in the market as well.
Yes, well, that's very interesting. I like the fact that you mentioned the recent implementation of the SCA. Yeah. And when I was looking at that, I saw why it was present, but personally I felt that it was going to add more friction to the transaction. I mean, you talked about accommodating for different customer segments. I was just interested to know how we can make PayTech more accessible to the masses.
I don't think about it like that so much, and actually just on one comment you made about strong customer authentication adding friction, well yes, it will add friction in some cases, not in all cases, and thankfully the regulator in the UK, so the FCA, also the PSR, have been very thoughtful in the way they've implemented to allow friction free, but also friction isn't always bad. Just imagine you're about to pay for something for £10,000 or you're going to transfer a huge amount of money. A little bit of friction is okay versus I'm going to buy a cup of coffee. I don't want any friction, right? So there's a difference. I've lost my train of thought in terms of what was your question again?
The accessibility of PayTech.
Oh, the accessibility to the mass. So I think it is accessible. I think there was a fundamental shift a few years back where a lot of new entrants saw banking services as they were, financial services as they were, and payments as they were, as being something that hadn't changed very much in a long time. And the customer experience, there was a lot of room for improvement. And they drove that improvement in customer experience to the extent that maybe the more traditional players are playing catch up now, but they're also focused on customer experience. How do we make this easy? With some of the things maybe that are nascent, I mean, digital currencies, for example, I think the average person in the street hasn't really got a clue when people start talking about NFTs or blockchain or CBDC. Well, they haven't got a clue. And honestly, they don't really need to right now. And over time, people will design propositions that solve a need. And when they design a proposition that solve a need, people will use them, right? Same with open banking. When someone designs an open banking retail payment proposition that is somehow better or quicker or easier or than how I make a payment today, typically using a card, people will use them. So I don't think the question is about accessibility in that sense. Where accessibility becomes important is around inclusion. Particularly, well, there's the two things that are linked. So financial inclusion, people talk about a lot, the kind of people who are underserved by the digital banking market. We also think about digital inclusion, because actually increasingly you can't have one without the other, and you need to make sure that people are digitally included in order for them to really be financially included, because so much of financial services now depends upon you having a smartphone or an app. So there's clearly a lot left to do, and the fintech sector in the UK particularly is important in that, because they're driving out new propositions that serve particular segments, that speak to particular needs, that make it easy to access and so on. But there's more work to be done, particularly around digital inclusion.
Yes, absolutely, and I completely agree with the fact that it's got to sort of marry together with digital devices and particularly smartphones. I think it's an interesting time to see how those sorts of different elements will all come together.
Yep.
In a way. But what is for you the most exciting payment model that you've seen this year or recently?
I have a lot of customers, and I think many of them do very exciting things. I think what's interesting is I think we've got to a point where when I make a payment, I need a means by which to make that payment. How I fund that payment can be somehow not the same thing. It doesn't have to be linked. So in the old days we would have a prepaid card, a debit card, a credit card. I think the idea of that is fundamentally shifting to now I have a payment method and I maybe have some choices in terms of funding sources. I think Monzo are about to do some really super exciting stuff in that space about giving consumers in the moment choices around the flexibility of funding source in a way that perhaps is more customer friendly than some of the buy now pay later offerings that we've seen in the market. So I think that's very exciting. We also have a customer who issues a debit card, currency. They issue a debit card, and when you use that debit card, the transaction is funded through a pull from your bank account, which could be held at more or less any bank. So using an open banking model, that's also very, very interesting. And I think we'll see more of that type of innovation that somehow separates making a payment and funding a payment, because they don't have to be linked, right? They can be two separate things, and there can be choice and flexibility. Consumer choice is the most important thing. Let's give consumers options. Let's let them choose how they want to make payments, how they want to interact. Let's let them choose. You know, I think Mastercard's pretty obsessed with that idea that consumers should be able to choose what they want to do. What's the easiest way to do this? What's the fastest way to do this? What's the way that best suits my needs?
Yes, I think consumer demands have become sort of the real priority in accommodating for what people want. It's something that you discussed in the fireside chat with Mark, wasn't it?
Yep.
The sort of personalization of these services.
Yep.
And I think we will have to see within, this time next year, how will the space change and how will it look? It will be very, very interesting. Well, yeah. David, I hope you enjoy the rest of today.
Thank you.
And it's been great to speak with you today.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you very much. Thank you.